Hello everyone, it's Deb again. So in this video I am going to show you how I use my homemade refried beans to make a little taco pizza here. And make sure you watch the two videos before this. I showed how to make the beans in my Instant Pot, and then in the second video I used those beans to make refried beans. And this is what I'm left with. So make sure you watch those two videos so that you can kind of get up to speed. And as I predicted, once these were taken out of the Instant Pot and put in the bowl and they cooled off, they thickened up quite a bit. This is pretty much the consistency of the Amy's refried beans. It's a little bit looser, but this has not been refrigerated. And so if this had been refrigerated, this would be even thicker than this right now. And so just like I always have to do, I add a little bit of water to these just to thin it down just a little bit, because if they're too thick, it's very hard to spread them on your tortilla shells. And the recipe I'm getting ready to make, it was actually just published in Debra Dickinson's new digital cookbook, and it is listed under the main dishes. It's called Recipes for Nomads by Nomads, and it's basically a compilation of recipes from full-timers, part-timers, and wannabe nomads. And I fit into the last category because I'm not quite nomadic yet. But I will put a link to her digital cookbook down in the description. And I submitted this recipe for a taco pizza, and it's really easy and it's really good. And I actually didn't even think I had a recipe I could submit for nomads that would be, you know, appropriate for nomadic living. And then I came up with this one, and it's really good. And so what I use is Stacey's organic tortilla shells, and these are 8-inch shells, and they come frozen. I get them in bulk. I buy them by the case through Azure Standard. And actually, before I even get started, I'm gonna heat up my skillet over here. I've got my cast iron griddle. It's just a flat griddle. I normally make this in my cast iron pan, which is like a 10-inch normal cast iron pan, but that's too heavy for me to bring in my rig. And so I bought this griddle because I can do a lot of things in the griddle too. And I already have a Magma cook set that has a deep skillet. So I'm just trying to cut down my weight. I put that on like 3. I'm still learning how to cook with the electric. I'm quite used to the gas stoves. But because I have electric and I have power stations that charge off solar, I'm trying to learn how to cook efficiently on these electric hot plates. And so I just, for a taco pizza, I just take one shell, try to pick the biggest one I can, especially for my son, because he has a pretty big appetite. And I just put the beans on in a pretty thin layer. If you get it too thick, then it will be really heavy and floppy, and that's not good. So once you get your beans to the consistency you want, that's about right. If it's too thick, just add a little bit more water. And then I just spread it in a pretty thin layer. When it's too heavy, it gets to be cumbersome. And so I try not to make it too heavy, because beans are actually pretty heavy as far as weight goes. And I take it, I'm just building like a regular pizza. So I'm taking it almost all the way up to the sides, but you want to leave a little bit around the edges, just like a normal pizza would. You don't want to take it all the way up to the edge. And this is a cheater pizza. I'm doing it on the stovetop because as a nomad, I'm probably not going to set up my Coleman oven very much. But I could cook this in the oven if I wanted to. I could bake it in the oven just like a regular pizza. But I like how you can make this on the stovetop and it comes out just fine. So I get all the beans back down in the bowl, scrape them down from the side, and that will go in the refrigerator. And then I just use like a Mexican blend of the cheese. I'm gonna be checking this. This seems to be pretty good as far as heat. I've got it on number 3. And then I just do a kind of a thin layer with the cheese. If you put too much on it, it will get pretty gooey and unmanageable. What you need with your cast iron skillet is to have a lid, because you need to cover this. You're trying to recreate an oven with your skillet, and so you really do need a lid that will fit your cast iron skillet or griddle or whatever you're working with there. And I just spread that as evenly as I can. You can see it's starting to smoke. I think I've got it too high, so I'm going to turn it down to about 2.5. And then what I use to season my cast iron is expeller pressed coconut oil. And I buy it in bulk in like a half gallon or a gallon. And so I take some of it and I just put it in one of these glass dishes, and then to dispense it I just have another little glass dish that I keep a paper towel in, and so I can just take some of that coconut oil out and melt it right onto there. Yeah, it's way too hot now. I might have to have it down on 2. And you just want a nice, very greased surface so that nothing's sticking or anything. You always want to season your cast iron as well as you can. And the reason it's smoking probably right now is because I had some cheese left over that kind of got stuck to it, to the surface. But it's definitely hot enough. I mean, you can tell. Definitely hot enough. I think I'm going to put it down on 2. Because on a gas stove, I would have this on medium low. I would not have it on high or anything. You don't want to burn it. You're trying to recreate an oven here. So I'm going to turn that down to 2. And I just built this on one of the silicone cutting boards. And so I can just slide it right off onto the skillet. And put the lid on it. And this lid actually is a very tight-fitting lid to this pan. It's got a rim on it. It came with a different skillet, but it works perfectly for my cast iron. And so I'm taking this with me. And so I'm just going to let that sit and bake, and that cheese will start to melt. And the bottom will get browned. And then once that's done, I'm going to transfer it off onto a cooling rack and let it cool a little bit, and then I will add the toppings. So I'll get back to you in a minute. Alright, so it has been about 6 minutes, and I just wanted you to look. I'm not sure if you can see that on a camera or not. This is why I like to use a glass lid, because once you start seeing that condensation on the inside, and you can kind of see the cheese, it's all melted and everything. Once you see that condensation, it's almost always perfect and ready to come out at that point. But I've got this spatula here. It's a really big pancake flipper, and so I take the lid off, and again I let the water run off, but just to the sides of the skillet, and it will evaporate. You can hear it sizzling. But I do that just so I'm not making a mess with the water from the lid. It evaporates quickly. And then to check it, you just put your spatula up under there and lift it. And you probably can't see that, but it's actually nice and brown on the bottom. And so now what I do is I put it out onto a cooling rack here. I turn off my oven. And you basically want to re-season it right away. And there's usually enough oil on your paper towel that you can do that again. But if not, you just get more from your container of coconut oil, expeller pressed coconut oil, and you just put more on the paper towel. But what you should be left with is a nice shiny pan here. Let me show you. So I don't know if you can tell or not, but that's nice and glistening. So you do it while it's still hot, and that's how you keep your cast iron seasoned, is you always keep it nice and greased and everything. And here I've got a cooling rack on just a regular metal thing. Not everybody has that, and so you may be forced onto taking that off and putting it onto a plate, but just be aware that when you do that, the heat from that is going to make condensation, and your crust, the pizza crust that you made with your tortilla shell, it will become soggy. So I don't recommend putting it right onto a plate. If you can find anywhere in your rig to have a cooling rack, that would be better, because that's where you want it to cool, so that that will stay nice and crispy and be more like of a nice little thin crust pizza or whatever. You can tell the cheese is nice and melted and everything. It's very hot. And so I'm just going to let that sit for a minute and cool off. Not very long. And then when it's kind of cooled off, I will go ahead and add the lettuce and the tomato and everything. So hold on a minute. Okay, so this is how I assemble my little taco pizzas. This has been sitting here cooling on the rack. It's still warm, but it's not really hot. And in this bowl I have my lettuce that I have torn up and washed, and I spun it. This is the lettuce keeper. This is my green onions, and I'll show you here why I'm doing what I'm doing here. I've got tomato and sour cream, and this is one of the hot sauces that we like. It's from Organic Harvest. It's really spicy and it's really good, so we like to use that as well. And so what I do, let me get this out of the way. You don't have to cut these pizzas because they're so small. This is just a very small pizza. You don't have to cut it up, but you can. And so I'm going to do that just to show you what you can do there. And this is just a pizza cutter that I have, and it works really well. It's got a guard on it. You just open that up, and I just cut it into 4 pieces. You don't have to do this, especially for my son, because he can just pick this up and eat it just like it is. So you don't have to cut this into pieces. But for demonstration purposes, I will. And when you're done using this, there's going to be grease and stuff on there. And so I just wipe it off right away. This does come apart to be cleaned. You can throw it in the dishwasher. I love this thing. I use it to cut pizzas and quesadillas and all that. And then it's just got that guard. You can close it back up. And now is when I slide it from this cutting board onto the plate. I just slide it right off. And the first thing I put on here is the lettuce. And I store it like this because there's a lot of moisture in lettuce. This is a salad spinner bowl. And this is the storage lid for it. And I store it upside down like this. And in the top, I have paper towel. And so when you store it upside down, the moisture from the lettuce will go to that paper towel there. Because the death of lettuce is moisture. So you want to keep this as dry as you can. I've already cleaned it, and I spun it out with one of those fancy salad spinners. And I just tear it up by hand when I'm cleaning it, and then here at the end, I tear it up even further. Because at this point, this could be just salad. Like I could just put a dressing on here and we would be good to go. But when I'm making the little taco pizzas, I like the lettuce to be a little bit smaller. And so as I'm putting it on the pizza here, I just tear it up a little bit more to make it a little bit smaller pieces. And that's pretty much good. And then we can do tomato. And I also use green onion. And I do the same thing with my green onion. After I chop it up, I put it in a bowl with a bunch of paper towel. I have paper towel on the top and on the bottom. And so inside of here, you can see I have my green onion. Because again, that's the enemy is moisture there, and so you don't want to have that in there. But first I will do some tomato. These are organic hothouse tomatoes. Unfortunately, they're not the best because we're going into winter, and well, these are just hothouse tomatoes from Mexico. That's pretty much the best I can do here. And I just put however many on. And then I usually at this point will do the sour cream. And I just use Kroger brand Simple Truth organic sour cream. And sometimes it's really loose, sometimes it's thick. For the taco pizzas, it's actually better if it's loose because you can just kind of drizzle it on. And if it's thick, you can't really do that. You kind of just have to plop it on. So for this purpose, it's actually better when you get a loose batch because you can just drizzle it. This is probably one of my son's favorite meals. Mine too. I love this stuff. And then I put just a sprinkle of green onion on. And again, I'll put the link to Debra Dickinson's digital cookbook in the description of this video so that you guys can check it out. It's only $7 for a digital download. It's no big deal. And then I just make sure I shake up that hot sauce really good because it's pretty thick. And I take out the reducer. Oh, it's hot. Oh, that's hot. There's usually a reducer top in there, but it slows me down, and so I take that out because normally I am better at dispensing the hot sauce than that little reducer lid. And I always wipe off the bottle so I'm not making a mess. And that's it. As my little taco pizza, quote unquote pizza, and it is very good. I love it. I love it so much. This is my son's, so now I have to take it into the house and deliver it to him. But there you go. That is my taco pizza, guys. I hope you try it, and I hope you use really good ingredients because it really depends on the quality of ingredients that you're using. So the better ingredients, the better the taste. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.